Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the CrossFit Games Update Show. I'm Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez and Pat Sherwood. And not only are we set for regionals, but the Masters Online Qualifier is right around the corner, and these divisions continue to impress us with what they can do.
You know, when you look at the youngins, you're supposed to be in your 20s and do amazing athletic things, but take a look at the 60-plus, how they look, how they feel, how quickly they recover, the weights they move, and suddenly your mind's really blown.
Yeah.
And as the season goes along, the feats just get more impressive because we start to get a little bit more aggressive with the programming. The loads get heavier, a little bit more gymnastic skills get thrown in the bunch. And I'm just excited to see what comes out of the pipe this year.
We're going to start with the 60-plus division for both the women and the men. We'll start with the women. So first, let's take a look back at the games of 2015 to see how things shook out in this division. And it was Rosalie Glenn who had just one finish lower than fifth. That was in her first event. She won it by 44 points over Bernadette Elliott, and it was Mary Schwing who occupied the final spot on the podium. So Rosalie Glenn is back this year to defend her title. She finished 8th in the Open. Now, Bernadette Elliott is not back, so how do we like Rosalie Glenn's chances of repeating here?
I think she's got a great chance, and it really kind of stands to be seen once we get to the games. Her Open finish can be a little misleading. She's down in 8th, but if you look at 16.5, she was 42nd. That accounts for half of her total points in just that workout. Get rid of that workout, and she's hanging around the top 5, maybe the top 3 in this division. And if you look at what she did last year, she was 2nd in the Open, then she went down a little bit in the Masters Qualifier, but she really shined at the games when you have multiple events over multiple days. And in her back pocket, she's got some strength that some of the other athletes don't have. She was 2nd in the max thruster in the Masters Qualifier, 2nd in the max snatch, So when it comes to the heavy barbell, that's a trick up her sleeve that she can save that we might see in the coming weeks.
The woman who finished 2nd, not back, but Mary Schwing finished 3rd. She is returning this year.
She's a serious threat, so tied for 9th right now in the Open in the 60-plus division. However, Mary Schwing has stood on the podium at the Games 4 times. Wrap your head around that. She took 3rd last year. If you go all the way back to 2012, she was she was the actual champ of the 60-plus. Looking better than ever. She's out of CrossFit 808 under the tutelage of Elisa Umeda, who's a Games veteran. She's in good hands. Mary's poised to have another great year.
There are quite a few newcomers to this division who are going to be pushing for a spot on the podium, assuming they make it to the games. And when you look at the Open leaderboard, a lot of new names up there. Lydia Beer wins it with just 11 points, and she's followed by Marcia Yeager. Both of them put up some pretty impressive results in the Open. Let's start with Lydia Beer, who, if she makes it through the Masters Qualifier, looks like she has what it takes to stand on the podium.
Lydia looks like a genuine threat. She's not only first place in the Open right now, she demolished the rest of the field. She has 11 little points. Second place has over 3 times as many. She had 3 firsts, 2 seconds. If you look at her past, she's done 13 marathons. You've probably seen her line up for a couple of those yourself.
Do those often.
Now, where did she come from? Last year, 2015, she took 9th in the 55 to 59-year-old division in the Open, went on to the Masters Qualifier. However, she did not earn a spot to make it to the Games, so she's aged up, and apparently that's treated her very well.
And then there's Marcia Yeager, who really brings in a unique background to the sport of CrossFit.
Very unique, not necessarily one I've ever seen before, a roller skating and inline speed skating background. And it makes for an interesting case because she says in her bio that before January of 2015, so last year, right before the Open, she'd never picked up a barbell before. And last year is when she started CrossFit, so she's just barely a year into this whole CrossFit thing. Yeah. You know what? She goes to CrossFit Conjugate, which is a pretty good gym to start at if you want to get well at the barbell. Her best finishes were in 16.2 and 16.5, which had a heavy dose of the barbell. The one thing I'm curious about is that her 2 worst finishes both had pull-ups in it. We might see some more gymnastics and bodyweight type stuff in the Masters Qualifier. If she can get through it, then clearly she's just scratching the surface of her potential, so she is a threat.
That's a look at the women. Let's head over to the men now in the 60-plus division and once again take a look back at the 2015 Reebok CrossFit Games. The defending champion, Steve Polini, is not back, but the man who finished 2nd is Denny Hawkins with a 12th and 11th. Those were his worst finishes in the games. And then Gary Jones, another guy we're going to talk about here, he finished in 4th place. Let's start with Denny Hawkins, who's now looking to move to the top spot of the podium.
Yeah, he's used to be in the 2nd spot a handful of times. He's been 2nd at the Games in 2015 and 2013. He's a Games veteran by all leaps and shakes because he's been to the Games 4 times. He's been in multiple divisions. He's now in the oldest division, but I think a huge factor for him is the Masters Qualifier. Last year, he came out of the Open in 3rd. He dropped down to 14th. It's kind of flirting with disaster there, almost not making it to the games. But once he got to the games, he finished back up on the podium again. So I think, especially in this old age division, if he can get through the Masters Qualifier cleanly, I mean, he's just got so much experience. It's hard not to count him as a factor.
You make a good case, but let's shift our attention over. I'll plead my case for Gary Jones. I like this guy a lot. So last year at the games, he took 4th place in the 60 plus, but there was a battle going on. He had all top 10 finishes and still didn't podium, so the race was that close. Currently 6th place in the Open. He owns a gym out in Auckland, New Zealand, so he arguably will have one of the coolest accents of anyone competing. Looked at his profile. He played rugby in his younger years. He's a scrapper.
Yeah.
He was in the Army, and his profile picture has him next to some big dead game that he shot and he was going to go home and eat.
Yeah.
So you put all that together, he's going to throw down on the field. He's going to close down the bar at the hotel. I say Gary Jones is somebody to keep your eye on.
When you take a look at the Open leaderboard, those men are going to be formidable threats when they get to Carson. But some new names also looking like they will be forces to be reckoned with. At the top, it's Daniel Walsh. He's followed by a man with a familiar last name, David Hippensteel, and then a guy who knows a lot about winning Masters competitions, Scott Olson. What do we know about Daniel Walsh, who comes into the Open qualifier as the Masters qualifier as the Open winner?
He has a similar story to Lydia Beer, meaning that he aged up and now he's winning the Open. So all top 5 finishes. He's out of CrossFit Parallax. And similar to Lydia Beer, you look back last year, he competed in a different division, the 55 to 59-year-old, took 55th, and then same like Lydia as well, went to the Masters Qualifier but didn't earn a spot. So I think another individual that is poised very well in 2016 to finally make his way to Carson.
And then you have David Hippensteel, who has that familiar last name, but also 2 event wins in the Open.
Yeah, he's got a great body of work competing in CrossFit. I would go so far as to call him the Dan Bailey of the Masters category.
Wow.
Since he showed up at the games in 2013, all he's done is just finish inside the top 10. He's got 2 top 5 finishes as well. He found CrossFit through his daughter, Heather Hippensteel, who we know that name because she's competed for CrossFit Invictus. He's also opened up his own affiliate, Screaming Eagle CrossFit in Tennessee. That's a great name to rally behind. But last year, he had his worst finish. He was 7th in the Open, 9th in the Masters Qualifier, 9th at the games, a little bit of a drop-off, but now he's aged up into the 60 plus. This is his first year in the category, and so far it's doing very well for him.
Yeah, and finally, I want to talk about a guy who has been one of the most decorated Masters athletes out there, and that is one of our favorites, Mr. Scott Olson. He is back this year.
If you don't take a look at Scott Olson's achievements and just how he looks physically and say, that's what I want to be like when I'm in my 60s, I don't know what's going on. He is a 5 times CrossFit Games athlete. He's a 3 times champion. We didn't get to see him compete last year. Couldn't quite remember why. I talked to him on the phone today, and he said, torn bicep.
Yeah.
And I thought, wasn't that years ago? And I guess he's torn it several times. It's kind of his weak link, but he's back. He's healthy, and I can't wait to see him throw down.
And if history is any indication, we should be scared because last time he tore his bicep was in 2010 when they didn't have Masters categories by age division. And then he went on to reel off a 2nd and 3 first place. He's one of only a handful of athletes to have 3 championships at the games. I mean, he's one of the best of all time.
He's a threat.
Yeah, it's going to be a great competition for both 60-plus divisions for the men and the women. We'll be going through all the divisions in the coming days of the Masters as we get set for the online qualifier. That's it for us for today. For Pat Sherwood and Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland. We'll see you guys next time.